So let's get this out of the way. This is the comic reporter. Hold on a second here. Every idea on this channel is mine, completely original and unique to me, and if they align with you, welcome aboard, young stud. Let's learn and read the situation together like the critically thinking masters of the political narrative we are proving to be. Literally just accurate prediction after accurate prediction, and if you're here, it's because you like accurate predictions. You like to be right. Probably more than I do. So let's try again. Mix facts with speculation for the purpose of accurate prediction and satirical extension mixed with a little bit of underhanded fun. That's what we do here. Like, subscribe, and let's go again. 14 Liberal MPs are upset that Mark Carney yells at them. I mean, it's not bad news. On one hand, you have 14 Liberal MPs pissing their pants because they're afraid of a 60-year-old man who loves taxes and has never met a tree he wouldn't take a picture with. On the other hand, you've got the optics that Mark Carney has a temper and likes to yell at people he thinks don't respect his authority. I mean, it lines up. Makes sense. That's a good through line. Conservatives don't really have to do anything with this situation. In fact, the further they stay away from it, the better. I told you so. This is how it works. This is how it works when a banker doesn't get to pick his own staff. It's how it works. Now, like I said, I somewhat support Mark Carney. I somewhat support what Mark Carney is doing because what Mark Carney is doing is burning his own manufactured majority to the ground. I don't even think Mark was prepared for just how NDP adjacent most of his Liberal Party actually is. I don't even think it's Mark's fault. I mean, in a way, it kind of is. He called a 1 month election cycle with no time to vet his MPs. That's his own fault. He got elected because of it, so it worked. Kind of. Really, all it was delaying the inevitable. He got into office, manufactured a majority, and it's built on sand. It's built in a sinkhole, but I mean, he did it. Is the collapse imminent? Not, no, not really. But it is necessary if these MPs want to keep fighting for what they want to fight for. This is what happened to Diefenbaker, by the way. Half his cabinet resigned or crossed for the exact reason these MPs are flipping out, because that's how it works when the guy in charge can't reconcile his plan with yours. Believe it or not, winning an election doesn't rely on strong MPs. It relies on a strong narrative. It relies on a strong MP. If it relied on strong MPs, Pierre would be prime minister and the Liberals would be the NDP. Yeah, June 5th, 2026, and oh my goodness, Liberals, what is going on over there? Here you thought you were getting the champion of the environment and the carbon tax, Mark Carney himself, and it turns out the only reason he likes that tax is because it makes money. What a wild thought. Taxes are for money. Sometimes they save a tree, but the delusion is thinking that that's the goal. No, no, that's the delusion. Bankers like money, taxes make money, and the more things you tax, the more money you can make. It's not about trees. It's about money. Yes, that's what it's all about. Liberalism is, in fact, liberalism in its actual true form. Who could have ever thought that a former bank governor of the Bank of Canada would be fundamentally different as a leader than a former high school drama teacher? That's a wild thought. Who could have ever seen this coming? Yes, some MPs got into politics to chase the delusion. Makes sense. Does. Once an activist, always an activist. Unless you're a banker, then you pretend to be an activist to get a job, and once you get it, no need to be an activist. If they were honest, they would have been NDP, but they're not, so they became liberals because Trudeau wouldn't yell at them for being stupid. If you've spent any time in the entertainment world, think of this like that girl we all know who wanted to be a model but she's not, she doesn't hustle enough, she doesn't work hard enough, she doesn't try hard enough, she's not good enough in the day to day. And eventually she just signs with an agency where she can kind of just show up for pictures once a year and they sell those. Is she a model? No. Is the agency paying her way? Yes, they pay her rent, they pay for her car, they pay for all of that. But she doesn't even really see a dime, nor does she see any success. That's what these MPs are like. The Liberal Party's just added a banner that said, "These are our MPs." Are they actually MPs? Are they? Kind of. Do they believe they're MPs? Does it say they're MPs on the paycheck? Absolutely, it does. The model believes she's a model. She believes she's a model. And if anyone yells at her, well, that's not fair because nobody treats models that way. Yeah, that's not true. I've never seen someone get yelled at more than a crazy. If you're actually one, you get yelled at all the time for not delivering or showing up on time or being the right weight. Absolutely. And you know who else that works for? Actual MPs, especially MPs who don't meet their deliverables. Listen, you have to respect the hustle. You really do. But I mean, eventually the hustle, it kind of runs out. What's really wild about this is that the liberal marketing tried to paint Pierre as the surly and angry one. They tried. And they could only manage to get three conservative MPs to cross the floor. That's it. And now here's Mark Carney with 14 MPs who were like, this guy sucks, which takes a lot to say when you're operating from a majority government. I wonder, you think they would cross to the NDP? I bet they would. Listen, the NDP is already a party of quilting circle politics. Everyone is welcome there as long as they aren't abrasive or question the gender equity guards. All you have to do is not sleep with each other's husbands and you're just fine. Sounds ideal for an activist liberal who doesn't like meritocracies or doing stuff at all. See, this is what happens when a dude who is so used to, you know, being super intimidating ends up in a room full of pampered nincompoops who lived and died with the vibes of the Trudeau Liberals and thought it would just stay that way because the Liberals are the nice ones. No, 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 no. Trudeau was just incompetent. That's how that works. He didn't punish MPs because he didn't know what these MPs were doing and he didn't care. He didn't have a direction. He didn't have a plan. All he had was a little bit of acting and a massive bone to pick with capitalism. That's it. That was Justin Trudeau. So now we have a Liberal Party forming a hierarchy, and surprise, surprise, the MPs who probably never should have been MPs don't like it. This is what I talked about. This is it. If the Conservative MPs cross the floor, the Liberals get stronger. If a Liberal MP moves to the Conservatives, the party gets weaker. That's the difference. That's the difference. Which means if you're going to see a split in the Liberal Party, it'll be because the MPs who don't like Carney move to the NDP. And I bet their ridings will be just fine with that because that's more like that's like I'm leaving the Liberals because we need to get back to our roots. It's a grassroots movement back to the NDP. And that makes sense for a liberal that just isn't actually a liberal and his voters know it. As expected, the Liberal Party performed unity because that was rewarded. Really, what they are is individually branded storefronts for incoherent ideologies that can only exist in a vacuum where everything is acceptable. That's why the Liberals right now don't make sense. They're not actually liberal. They would align with the activist parties. Now, under Trudeau, the Liberals were an activist party, but now that's shifted over to the NDP or the Green, one of those. It doesn't matter. All that needs to happen is to restore order in Ottawa, is those MPs figuring out that the Liberal Party isn't working in their best interest. Basically, the Trudeau Liberals were acting class, doing improv for a camera, and nothing coherent when the cameras were off, because that's what Trudeau did. And they were so sensitive to criticism that they thought Pierre was Satan himself. They actually do think that, by the way. But hey, if Pierre is Satan, then Mark Carney is basically every child-devouring ancient Sumerian deity that ever existed. Because believe it or not, Pierre isn't Satan because Carney was really just a dude with expectations who expects more than a memo covered in lipstick. We call this messaging implosion. And it happens because no matter how hard you try, when a country or business struggles, eventually every illusion shatters. If these MPs are actually competent, they'll get the hell out before. If these MPs are actually competent or ideological, they'll get the hell out of there before they totally lose their voter base. A conservative crossing liberal is ending their career, but a liberal crossing NDP, again, that's fine. That's just returning to your roots since the state the NDP is in right now. In fact, that's probably more in line with what their voters are, anyways. I should get this out of the way too. I am a conservative by vote, but a classic liberal by ideology. Not a Trudeau liberal, not even a Martin liberal, a classic liberal. Progress through practice, not performance. Conserve the ideas that make things better, eliminate and replace everything else. Conservatives, that's supposed to be what progress is. Conservatives are supposed to be the party of the reset, fiscal managers, the recovery guys. When the liberals make a mistake, the conservatives are there to make sure it doesn't get out of control. That's how the cycle is supposed to work. This started to shift under Harper, by the way. It didn't start with Trudeau. The liberal shift to the left was driven by Harper's shift to the left. Harper started to shift the conservatives into classic liberalism, which, by the way, is fine with me. He wasn't great, but he was flexible, and that worked well for us. Carney, believe it or not, is more conservative than Harper. I believe that. He's even more conservative than Pierre. Just look at how hard he's trying to preserve the old systems when knowing they are broken. What people mistake is the ideological buy-ins that Carney made for his career. He doesn't actually think that. He just used them as stepping stones, and that's what his MPs are finding out. He's trying to maintain as much as he can in Canada, but the systems Trudeau put in place are so incompatible with the real world and how it works. It's just impossible. You can't do it. Not really. And that makes Carney look bad. Of course he's angry. In the corporate world, he could have just fired the incompetents and replaced them, but not in government. No, if Melanie Jolie wants to stay, she stays. If Stephen Guilbeault wants to stay, he stays. You got to have by-elections. You got to get those people out because people want it. Are these these MPs, they can just cross the floor to save themselves. That's how that works. That might have to be what happens now because there is no way Carney can do what these people want and still save the country. And they wouldn't be okay with that, by the way, because according to these MPs, hierarchies and power structures are bad. Okay? The best part of the meltdowns is they're natural. Pierre doesn't even need to touch them. The conservatives don't need to talk about this at all. They can just play out. That's how fracturing works. It's not media driven, it's ideology. These liberals just got into politics to do one thing, and now that thing's becoming impossible, and staying liberal doesn't benefit them anymore, majority or not. That's how majorities are supposed to work, by the way. When it was Trudeau in charge with a minority, Justin could just blame Pierre because Pierre kept blocking everything, and that was enough for the MPs because of minority. Now that stuff still isn't happening, and even in a majority, and that's got to be a kick in the teeth. It's got to be. And Mark doesn't know how to talk to these people. They're plebs. They're basically just citizens with a title. That Mark has plans and he needs complete buy-in for those plans to work. By the way, the voter base is gonna have no sympathy at all for these MPs. None. If you're normal working Canadian, being yelled at is it's Tuesday. That's how it works. You get called in, you get yelled at, you get paid, and you go home. That's how your day goes. It is what it is. You hate your boss, but he pays you. So whatever. You still have a job, you may or may not be good at it, and you can pay your mortgage, and that's work. Then that's the reality of the situation. Those MPs are and here's the reality of the situation. These MPs are probably good people. I believe that. I think that they're principled, they believe what they are doing is right. They simply trying to move forward the goals they have in politics. They supported Mark Carney because they thought it would benefit them, what they were trying to do, but they found out it doesn't, and that's not their fault. That's politics. But Mark Carney doesn't believe that. But Mark Carney doesn't believe what they want even matters. He believes that what he wants should be what the party wants. And if the party isn't unified, it's not a party. And he's right, by the way. That's why the manufactured majority makes everyone scratch their heads a little bit. How is Mark Carney going to poach ideologically oppositional politicians for a majority when half his party is simply performing liberalism like it's a theater? How's he going to do that? Answer, that's because what he has isn't actually a majority. This is the paper tiger. This is what I said it was. This is what you knew it was. This is what everyone knew would happen. Theater kids playing politics is and always will be theater kids playing politics. Theater kids don't like criticism. They just like to pretend they do. Good night.